Okay, so this is going to be video 2 of controlled pinch pots. In this video, we're going to go from the first video where we actually learned the controlled pinching technique, and we're going to take that pinching technique, which is right here. This is where we ended the last time, and we cut it in half when we looked at it and we talked about the thickness and all that kind of stuff and trying to keep it around that 1/4 inch. It can be a little bit thicker, and that's fine, especially if you're going to do the carving. And if you're one of my students, you get to do the carving. So we're going to start here, and this is, we're going to start at this point where right before we cut it in half. So if you're watching this video, then that means that you need to, if you're a student, pause it and go ahead and take the pinch pot to this point, which is right before we cut it. And then go ahead and start the video back up, and that's where we're going to start from. So what we're going to do is we are going to take our controlled pinch pot with our extra clay at the top, the other couple of zones pinched out in here. I would say at least 3, maybe even 4 wouldn't be that big of bad of an idea. And then we're going to go from there. So we've got the little hole, and we've got our extra controlled clay up here. And then now is what we're going to do is we're going to start opening this up. And the reason why we do a controlled pinch pot for a bowl is mostly if you're going to do I'm going to show you guys 2 different types of rims in the last video. And if you're going to do the floral rim, you want to have extra clay at the top. So if you remember back in the first video, the controlled video on the board, if you go back and you look at that video, and maybe I'll pull it up and show you here. There was a sketch on the board that showed a pot cut in half, and then it has green lines around the top, which shows about a 1/2 inch. And then the rest of the bowl is a 1/4 inch thick. So that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to leave that extra bit of clay that controlled the directional clay at the top up there, so we can have enough clay to do the floral rim and make it look really nice, make it look like a flower. So now what we're doing is we're just pinching this open. And what we're trying to do is we're going to open this up enough to where we can get our hand in there. So we're actually going to use our fist or our hand as our bowl mold. So I have found that if you've I don't know if you've ever heard, or if you've been in a human anatomy class, there are 3 organs that are about the size of our fist. If you make a fist. And then one of those organs is if you take 2 fists and put them together. And it's not, it's not exactly, it's not, science. This is an ish thing. Some people's are bigger, some people's are smaller. So it's like, don't quote me. But, they say, and the reason why we do this is, let's just talk about those organs. So the first organ is if you put 2 fists together, guys, this right here is about the size of your brain, okay? This one right here, a fist, is about the size of your heart. Okay, and then the third one, and the most important one, especially for this lesson, is a loose fist is about the size of your stomach. And yeah, your stomach does stretch and that kind of stuff. But what I like to do is I like to think of little areas that, in my art, I'm looking for things to improve my work. Make things more functional. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute after we get our foot on and we start pinching this out to our foot, and I'll show you what I mean. And it's another reason why, guys, I want you to notice that I'm holding this in my hand the whole time. I'm not putting it down, so don't put it down. The other thing is, and I'm noticing this a lot in my classes, guys, don't keep adding water to this, okay? If it starts drying out and you're getting too much cracks and it's getting really difficult to work with, wet it down and just wrap it up and leave it alone for a little while, okay? And then come back. Let that water kind of absorb through the whole clay. Don't keep sitting there adding water to this. All you're going to do is it's just going to soften those outer layers, and then eventually, sure, it's going to soak through, but you're going to get a big pile of goo. Your bowl's going to turn into almost like slip. So if your bowl is getting too stiff, then like I said, spray it down, get a spray bottle, spray it down with some water, and wrap it up really tight. Come back in a couple of hours, okay, or even the next day, okay, and then start working on it. But for the most part, guys, you can work on this even when it's starting to dry out. You just have got to blend your cracks in when they come up. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, now that we've opened this up, and we've opened it up to about here, okay, so it looks kind of like a jellyfish head, Now what we want to do is we're going to take our fingers and we're going to start with our fingers in here like this, and then we're just going to slowly, and inside I'm just slowly, as I twist it, I'm going to make a fist, and I want this to go around there. Now back to the reason why we do this is because if we make a bowl that is about the size of our stomach, okay, well, that would be, you know, a portion, you know, you would be, that would be enough to feed you, you know, and then if you wanted to go back and get more and get full, well, then, you know, you can. But instead of making a small bowl or something like that, you can make a bowl that is, you know, about the right size for your meal, okay? So I'm just slowly twisting this around my fist, and it's going to make that bowl shape that we want, okay? Now let's talk another little reason about, you know, some things that, you know, just thinking about little tiny things that will make your work go from just being just something that you do into actually making it more artistic, okay? Thinking of little tiny things that, you know, maybe not the everyday average person is going to think about, but they're going to appreciate it down the road, okay? So now after I've got my fist through here, guys, it's going to be really kind of, you know, it's going to have your knuckle marks in there and stuff, and it's going to be really gross. You know, so now what we're going to do is we're going to slowly, we don't want to pinch all of our clay out. We want to leave a little bit of meat on the bones, because we're going to come and we're going to actually, when we get our foot on there, we're going to pinch it out to our foot, okay? So I'm going to show you a couple of things, and I may not need this one totally on this one, but I'm still going to go ahead and do it just to show you, in case if, you know, you want to do the floral rim and your bowl, the bowl is not quite, you know, to the shape that you want. I can show you how to shape it and form it. But right now, what I'm doing is I'm just lightly pinching, and I'm just kind of shaping it out to the way I want. And then I'm going to show you something that I do on the inside here. But one thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we keep this in that bowl shape. And let's say we're losing a lot of our bowl shape, or it's going one way more than the other. One thing you can do is you can take your hand, wrap it around it like this, and you can kind of come up and just lightly tap this out. This is going to thicken up your rim. It's going to compact it a little bit too, and we'll talk about compacting and compressing and stuff like that in a little bit. But it's also, you can take some time and you can push down on the top and really start forming that into that bowl shape. We want to keep that round shape, and let's talk about why we want to keep the round shape, okay? Especially on the inside. It's not necessarily, you know, you don't have to have a round shape on the outside. So like if you wanted to, you know, cut some angles in it or something like that, that's fine. But one of the things that I have found is that, you know, think about when we're eating, okay? Who do we normally eat with, okay? And since I can't ask questions and get answers here unless I wait for comments, we usually eat with family and friends, okay? So, you know, in a conversation, we're trying to have good conversations. Nobody ever goes to dinner trying to have a crappy conversation. But what we want to do is we want to have a pleasant conversation, guys. And I have found that our minds are really weird creatures. And what I mean by that is that little tiny things, even little details that we may not notice, our brains will, okay? And so if we can take something and you know, this is something that I go over in my class, and I definitely want to go over it here. You know, I want you guys to imagine the last time you used a plastic bowl, okay? Or, you know, a paper bowl or something like that, one of these really cheap, crummy bowls. You know, I want you to think about it and how it is, okay? For the most part, even most of them have pretty flat edges, flat sides. And then that bottom is definitely super flat, you know? So when you take your spoon, which is, you know, a round object, it's like taking a round object, you know, a round peg and putting it in a square hole. But if you think about it, you're going down a flat side, you're gonna hit that bottom, and then you're gonna come across the side come across the bottom until you hit the other side, and then you're gonna come back up. So, you know, there's interruptions in that whole process. Now, if we take something and we keep it to where it's just a smooth rhythm through here, you know, we may not recognize that, but our minds definitely will. And it's something that kind of, you know, if you know, it's part of the flow, you know. So one of the things I really want you to do is make sure that your bottom is nice and round, and that it goes all the way up from the top to the bottom in this nice round flowing motion. You know, you want to have that bowl shape. So I call it bowlish. You know, when I'm talking to my students and we're pinching out and stuff like that, I tell them, you know, let's go down and let's start, you know, shaping it more bowlish. So now what I'm doing here is I'm taking my thumb, and we're going to do this. This will be picture on picture. I'm trying to still figure that out, but, you know, I'm coming and I'm taking my thumb and I'm going to the bottom and then I'm dragging it up the side like this, and I'm doing it the long way to cover more area. Okay, so I'm gonna start at the bottom and I'm gonna come up here and I'm not pushing out too hard. What I'm doing is I'm just pushing enough to flatten that clay out, smooth it out the inside. I want the inside to be smooth. No bumps, no rugged areas or anything like that, no cracks, especially no cracks. So I'm taking this, I'm slowly coming up the sides, you know, and I'm gonna go all the way around. I'm gonna do this all the way around. You know, and if you have to go around a couple of times, that's fine, it's not a big deal. And then now we're gonna take some time, you know, we don't wanna pinch too much now, but we definitely are going to pinch and shape this. We wanna get it into the bowl shape, you know, or bowlish. And we're gonna pinch it out. You know, working on smoothing that out, working on making sure that, you know, we don't want it to come back in. You know, we want to make sure that it comes, if anything, it comes out, you know, or keeping it, you know, once again, bowlish. You know, if it comes back in, you got to realize that, you know, a spoon is going to, you know, going to have to go around that edge. So like I said, think about how a spoon is going to travel through this, because that's really what we're going to be using as our utensil here. So now take some time and just, you know, work on it nice and get it nice and round. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because I want to keep these videos kind of short, you know, and don't be, you know, guys, if you need to, you can watch it and then try it and then, or, you know, work along with me. And then, you know, if you need to take a break or a pause, then, you know, go ahead and pause the video, take your break, and then come back, okay? That's the cool thing about videos. You know, it's not like a live demo where, you know, I don't have to stop and wait for you or something. Right now I'm just trying to get that bottom nice and smooth, bringing it into the sides, thinking about that spoon traveling the side, down the side, up down the far side, and then up the down, cross around the bottom, and then up the other side. You know, okay. So this is pretty good for right now. I'm gonna leave a little bit of this here. So like I said, so when I get my foot on here, you know, we can still have enough, a little bit of meat on the bones to kind of, to pinch it out and form it to our foot, guys. Because the one thing I really wanna let you know is, especially with hand-built things tend to be more organic, okay? Especially more organic than, per se, the wheel or something like that. So, you know, don't sit here. I mean, unless you're a perfectionist, and even then, you know, you perfectionists, you know, spend as much time as you want on it, but, you know, realizing that handmade things, you know, are organic, okay? And that's completely okay if it's a little bit, you know, a little bit off. That's fine. That's the, you know, that's the cool thing about handmade things, even things on the wheel, you know. You know, they're not perfect, and that's really what I really enjoy about the whole process, is that they're not you know, when you go to, you know, these big box stores or anything and you go to buy bowls, they're all the same, and I personally think that's kind of boring, you know. Let's liven it up, you know, let's make something that's, one's a little bit bigger than the other. That's not a big deal, you know. So so now that we've got that, guys, so the thing that I'm using here, guys, this is called a banding wheel. Now, you don't have to rush out and go buy a banding wheel. You don't even have to do this on a banding wheel, but I have found that working from a banding wheel is definitely easier, okay? Now, what can you do if you're just starting to build a studio, or if you're one of my students at home? Well, you guys, what I used for many years before I started buying banding wheels and things like that, I used a Lazy Susan. So, you know, you can go to any of these, you know, dollar stores or, you know, Walmart or wherever, and go pick you up a cheap little banding wheel, or not a banding wheel, but a Lazy Susan, and turn that into a banding wheel, okay? Now, what we're gonna do is, this is compressing, and it's also shaping, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm lightly taking my metal rib, which is, you know, the tools that I'm gonna use in these videos are the same tools that we have here in the classroom, you know, and I'm gonna come and I'm gonna drag it up the sides here, and this is kind of compressing it, but it's also shaping it and it's cleaning it up. You know, if you have a lot of those little cracks, or even some of the bigger ones, this is gonna be the time that we're gonna blend those in. We're making the outside nice and smooth, you know, getting it. And then if you see these areas that are, you know, a little bit further out than the rest, take some time, go in there and lightly push it out. Okay, and then after I've gone up, you know, I make sure I get the whole thing. And once again, if you're doing this and you don't have a Lazy Susan or a banding wheel, you can do this at home. You just got to pick it up and turn it, or just work around, you know. It's not a big deal. You don't have to have one of these, like I said, okay? And then after I've gone up, now I'm gonna go side to side, okay? Now really this is where a lot of these cracks, most of these cracks, if you'll notice, are running, you know, up and down the pot like this. This is where we're really gonna get those, especially your bigger ones. This is where you're gonna blend those in, and we're compressing this clay, you know, making it nice and tight, compacting it back together. And, you know, compressing your clay is kind of an important step. It tightens up your clay, it strengthens it up more. So we're pushing those particles back together. They like to be really tight, you know, they're friends. They like to, you know, hang out. And then I'm going to compress this all the way around, smoothing it out, cleaning up my cracks. I'm going to do it all the way up the top. Okay, now you're going to get these little wavy looking things when you're using the metal rib. And that's okay, because those are really easy to take care of. Okay, so all we do now is we're just going to take a minute and you just take your thumb and you run it up the side just long ways, and this will just smooth it all back out. Just going to get rid of those waves. I'm not too terribly worried. You know, I want to keep it in this, like I said, the bowlish shape. But, you know, don't worry too much about, you know, the perfection part of it yet, you know. And once again, it's organic, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But, you know, we're going to pinch this out as soon as we get our foot on here. Because even though we're going to spend some time centering it, it's still going to be a little bit off, okay? And then that's why we leave a little bit of that meat on the bones, is because as soon as we get our foot on here, we're going to put it back right side up. And then we're going to pinch it out and shape it or form it to our foot. So now we're going to grab a handful of clay. We're going to put the foot on. Now the foot, guys, is just a simple coil. Okay, so you're going to take your coil, your handful of clay, and this is practice, guys. So you know you may not get this on your first go, and that's fine. Once again, you may have to roll out a few coils, and it's fine. And I'm going to show you how to take care of what we call a flat tire, I guess. You know, it's what I call it. But I'm going to pinch this out, squeeze it out to about, you know, about half the size of the coil that I want. I want about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit thicker of a coil for my foot. So I'm going to pinch this out to about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And then now, guys, what I'm doing is I'm using my whole hand. I'm keeping my fingers together. I'm going from the tips of my fingers to the palm of my hand, and I'm going to do it at a slight angle here like this. Now, I want you to realize I'm also not pushing very hard, okay? You want to start off super soft, make sure that the area in front of you is clear of any kind of objects, you know, and then we're going to push, and I'm going to drag my hand off to the side here, okay? And then I'm just going to come back, you know, and if you want, you can kind of push a little bit hard. It's okay if it gets a little bit, like it's going to get that flat tire thing, and so I'm purposely trying to get the flat tire. Here, I want to show you guys how to fix it. So a flat tire is when, I don't know if you can hear that, but it sounds kind of like you have a flat tire on a bike or a car. So what you do is you lift it up onto its the high side, make the high side pointing up, and then we're just going to tap it down, okay? And then we're just going to keep putting it on the edges and keep tapping out the edges until we get it kind of roundish, and then you're going to come back through and you're going to lightly roll that out, you know, doing that light pressure and getting it to round itself out, okay? I know that my coil is getting to be larger than I need, so I'm going to go ahead and break some of this off. Okay, and then we just keep lightly rolling it out. You know, and depending on how big your bowl is, sometimes you might want a little bit bigger of a 1/4 of an inch, or you know, 3/8 of an inch, I guess. You know, if it's a big bowl, you do. But if it's a smaller bowl, we want to go about 1/4 of an inch-ish. So So we're going to call it good here. I think this is about the right size, okay? Now I'm going to pull my bowl back in front of me, okay? And then I'm going to wrap this around the top of it. And then the one thing that we want to make sure is that our foot is not too big and not too small. Now, how do you decide that? Well, the one thing you can do is you want to keep it, you don't want the foot about, I'd say, about 50%, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less than the opening of the bowl. So after you've done that, so what you want to do is you want to kind of look around the whole thing, just kind of get a good look at it and make sure that it's, that the foot isn't coming way out here and it's not way in here. If it's too thin, when you touch it with a fork or a spoon or something like that, it's going to tip over. If it comes way out, well then, we're going to lose part of the aesthetic appeal, and we'll talk about that after we get the foot on and we kind of look at it here in just a minute. But sit there and kind of get this, get it on the center as best as you can. Don't spend too much time here, but kind of look at it all the way around and make sure that it looks pretty decent, that it looks the right size. Okay, now you can either take a needle tool or you can take the Sgraffito tool, and you're going to come up to where we overlapped it. So we definitely want to make sure that our coil overlaps. Okay, then we're going to take it and we're going to cut it at a 45-ish. Okay, now throughout these videos, you're going to hear that word quite a bit, 45-ish, or some degree-ish, and that just means that it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so now guys, this is going to be one of the few times that you're going to hear me say that it's okay to take two pieces of clay and blend them together without scratching and scoring and adding slip. Now, and the reason why I think that, if you just get into the habit of scratching and scoring and adding slip to two pieces of clay, you're a lot less likely to break those pieces off or break them apart or something. But since this clay, we rolled it out of the same coil, the moisture level in the clay is going to be the same. It doesn't really matter. And one of the reasons why we cut it at that 45 is because that gives us more surface area to attach it to, okay? So take some time, press that together, blend your cut marks in, and then we want to make a nice little ring. Okay, so we want to have it to be a perfect little ring that's nice and put together, and we blended that in. Now we're going to take, this is when we're really going to take our time to set this up, and we're going to center it. So look over the top of it, make sure that you get your bowl, and you want to get this as close to the center as possible. Okay, now you're going to take a needle tool. And with your needle tool, you're going to come on the inside of it here, and you're going to make a mark. Lightly score the inside of the bowl, okay? Then you're going to remove this, and I usually flip mine upside down because that was the bottom. That was sitting on the bottom. Then I'm going to scratch and score. Now, scratching and scoring, guys, is making a nice little tick mark here, on the clay surface. And this is going to help us when we put our slip. Okay, so slip is wet, just soaking wet clay. Okay, and that's like the glue. Now our score marks are like little kind of ticks in the clay for the slip or the glue to sink into. Okay, and if we do that on both sides, that gives our slip something to grab onto on both sides and hold it on. If we were to do this on a smooth surface, there's nowhere for the slip or the glue to hold on to and to bond to, or to create for that slip to grab onto. Now when we do this, we're creating something on both sides for the slip to kind of get into and create a good little bond, or a good little place for that glue or that slip to grab onto. So I'm gonna go through, and I usually do the little cross hatches on both ways, get it nice and good. Like I said, I wouldn't go much deeper than a 1/16 of an inch. Now, like I said, slip is the wet clay, okay, just super wet. It's just, just goopy wet clay, okay? Then I'm gonna put a little bead around my foot here, just like this, a decent amount. I'm putting it, and I'm kind of pushing it down into those score marks, but I'm not like blending in my score marks, okay? I don't want to blend them in. I want to just push this slip down into the score. And we want to go all the way around, and we get it done. I just do one side. You don't need to do both sides, just one side. Cover it up, Then we're going to take our foot ring, we're going to flip it back up, and then now that little score mark, that circle that we did, is going to help us line up our foot again. So we're going to take a second after we get it lined up, then we're going to kind of lightly push down, you know, kind of creating that bond that we're looking for, getting those two, that slip to grab down into the other side, onto the bowl. And then this is what's going to help bond it in. And this is going to be our strongest bond, but we're going to do one other thing to help bond it together. And it's also going to be part of the aesthetics. It's going to make it look good, better than just two, like this little ring sitting on here. Okay, so we're going to take our needle tool, we're going to flip it upside down, and we're going to use this side, not the pokey side, but this side. I usually put my hand on this, on the outside part, and then I'm going to come in about 1/16 of an inch, and I'm going to go all the way around on the inside. Like this. And I'll show you here in just a second. What it should look like. And then we're going to do that on the outside as well, coming in about 1/16 or 1/8. And we're just going to push this in, and we're going to push it in all the way around. Now, if you're just somebody watching the channel and you want to do this, now if you like the way this looks, that's fine. But if you're one of my students, you're actually going to take another minute, because I'll tell you this right now, I actually think this looks pretty cool, but with my students, I want you guys to practice and work on your blending. So after we've done this and we've gone all the way around, and we've pushed this in on both sides, inside and out. Okay, and I'll show it on the camera here. So, you know, that's a close-up of it on both sides, all the way around. Okay, so it should look like that, okay? Then, guys, you can take either your finger and start smoothing to blend this in. What the goal is, guys, is we want this to look like it's kind of growing out of the bowl, okay? So take a few minutes and blend this in, making it look really nice, okay? And then do the same thing on the inside here. Now, if you've got fingers like mine, especially with this inside part, I can't get all the way in there and make it look nice without making a big mess. So your wooden knife, okay? Wooden knife, you come in here and you just start blending this in, just like this, all the way around, getting those marks that you can't get with your finger. And you do that on the outside as well. Okay, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because we're getting to where the video is starting to go longer than I want. But now, guys, we're going to take our time. We're going to flip this upside down, okay, and it should be blended in. I've got this one right here, which is one that I've got to this point, but I just went through and I finished blending it, and it's this one right here, okay? So I'm going to switch them out, and then we're going to go to our next video, and it looks like this, okay? So it's nice and blended in. Looks good, okay? And then we're gonna flip this up, and then now what I want you to do is I want you to spin it, and if you'll look at this one, you can see where it's off, okay? So it's not perfectly centered. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spin it around, and I'm gonna find that area, which is over here, and I'm gonna use that meat that we have, and I'm gonna start pinching this out to get it formed or shaped to the foot, okay? So it doesn't look so far off, you know, and I'm just gonna take some time, and I'm going to use that extra clay in there. We don't want to go too much thinner than 1/4 of an inch, you know, because we're going to be carving on these. And I'm going to go through and get this caught up, okay? So that's what I mean by forming to the foot, okay? So, and we'll spend some time getting this, making it look a lot more even, okay? But once again, guys, don't worry too much about making it look perfect. It doesn't have to be. This is a hand-built project. Hand-built is, you know, organic. Keep that in mind with all of our hand-built assignments, okay? And same with you people that are just watching the channel for fun, or, you know, working at home, just trying to figure out how to do a different style of pinch pot, okay? Well, guys, that's this video done and over with. You know, we did run into the 30-minute mark, and but, you know, take it in pieces and do your best. But guys, you know, subscribe to the channel, help grow the channel, make it bigger, make it to where more people can see this. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. All right.